West Side. To live in Don LA, where everybody try to fatten their pocket. So many hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing, currency chasing worldwide.
Well, hello. God bless you, community family. Happy next year. This is now 2018, and this is our first show back with the beautiful Morris Media Studio this is my Vanna White. You know, we have a new backdrop, and we're so proud of Felicia for what she's doing right here in our own community, trying to give us access to media. So we have an opportunity to talk amongst ourselves and talk things out. So God bless you once again, and welcome to Gang Talk 2018. Hello, Skipp. Thank you for coming.
Well, good evening, sister. As always, I give honor and praise to God. Truly grateful to be here at our CNN studios here at Morris Media Live, and give a shout out. Hi, Felicia.
Yes.
Gotta say hey to Felicia real quick. Yeah. But just grateful to be alive. This is a new year. Happy New Year to everyone here.
Yes.
Glad to have made it. Yes. I'm grateful to be here. There's a lot of people didn't make it.
Oh yes.
A lot of people got dead right before it was time to transition over to 2018. They transitioned over to something else. So
Yeah, they did.
I'm truly grateful to be one of the ones who made it to this year.
Me too. I'm happy to see you, and I was really happy to see the latest picture with you and the two little babies that you like to ride around and take pictures of you guys doing things together. So I just think those are so adorable.
Right.
And I just
Did you hear the song that I was teaching them to sing? I just shared that with the poetess earlier. You didn't hear the song?
Mm-mm.
We did a video, and it was They Smile in Your Face.
Oh.
And I asked Cody, I said, what they want to do? He said, they want to take your place. I said, who are they? The backstabbers. Right. I think it's important that children know that, so I just wanted them to understand the concept of why someone would write a song like that.
Yeah. Bless their hearts. You see us just skipping me tonight, and that's unintentional. We had invited a guest, and as I explained before we started, that I wanted to start with mothers, know. And because I know the holiday is very hard for them, our mothers that have had their children murdered, Christmas and New Year's and birthdays and Mother's Day, those are always traumatic dates for our mothers. And I'm one that started with the mothers, and to this day, I defend them. I will stand in the gap for them against anybody that would say unkind things about them, directed towards them, anything that was totally unnecessary, because I think their grief is a standalone that deserves community respect. And when you think, Skipp, how many mothers we were receiving at the beginning of our work,
yes,
it's been devastating. And so let's talk about our guest last week, because we did have a show last week.
Yes, we did.
Yes. And who was here?
I believe it was two of the executive body of the Southern California Ceasefire Committee, one of the newest members, Tim Carnegie, and also one of the older members. We call him OG because he's out of gas. That will be Ben, old guy, Ben Taco Owens.
Yes.
Definitely, the beauty in this is I saw Ben Owens, his progress throughout the years. When I met him, he used to wear short pants and
tennis shoes.
Right. He would wear the long socks that came up to his knees.
Yes.
And it was just really funny to see him then, and he has, for the last maybe 7 years or so, been wearing suits almost every day. And if he doesn't have a suit on, he definitely has on some kind of professional attire, or I want to say manly attire. He is not. He doesn't dress immature. He dresses mature.
Right. Well, it wasn't anything immature about the shorts. It was just funny.
Well, it was
with those long socks and the tennis shoes. It's just Taco.
The reason why I would laugh is because it's. it goes back in the days of how we used to dress at 15 and 16.
Yeah.
And he was still dressing like that. But,
Yeah.
yeah, he's come a long way.
Yes, he has.
Yes,
Bless
indeed.
his heart.
Taco Bell.
Yeah, okay. And one of the original, as you, Skipp, original members of the Southern California Ceasefire Committee, and is it this year that they celebrate 14 years?
Right, so it actually started in 2005. And what is so crazy about this, see, I try to do math, and this is why I got in trouble in school, is because I couldn't figure out math. So let me tell you what's real easy right now. So August 11th of this year will be the 10-year anniversary of the death of Darren Bo Taylor, right?
Okay.
However, after that, February 2009, Second Call, we had our first fundraiser.
Yes, he
honoring Bo Taylor.
Yes.
However, this is going to be our 10th anniversary of our fundraiser in February. But Bo didn't die till August. How did we beat him to reach number 10?
I don't know.
How does
I'm
that
not
happen?
good at math.
How does that happen? So when you ask me, is this year number 14? So Ceasefire started in 2005.
Okay.
So I would like to say that 2018 is going to be year number 13.
Okay.
But in reality, you're absolutely right. This is going to be the 14th year of its existence.
Okay. Okay.
And I need a caller. Somebody call in 323-293-3375 and tell me how can that happen? How can we be at 10 years, but then we haven't got to 10 years yet?
Yeah, I can't even answer that question. All I know is that I can't remember the year myself, but I remember two things that happened. Caitlin Avila was murdered, little 3-year-old Caitlin Avila, and she was murdered by accident because actually that 17-year-old had come around to kill her father.
Right.
Okay, and as what happens in these cases sometimes, people totally uninvolved get the end result. And in this case, it was 3-year-old Caitlin. And at the time, it was a big press conference. A lot of people came out, Stop the Violence, Project Cry No More. And in the midst of all of this is Skipp Townsend.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next thing I know, because of those years, I was doing forums after Delish Allen was killed in front of Locke High School. And I believe that was in 2005, too.
Okay.
And it's just been so many that it's hard to keep up, but there's some that you just remember because of the circumstances. And I met Skipp there. There was a big coalition, and Ceasefire came up. And somebody that I was kind of associated with at the time made some little comment about, well, I want to be on the board of directors of that.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Okay.
You're not going to say his name?
No. And then, no. And your grandmother shot back at him, well, the least you could do is come to a meeting first.
Right.
So it's like, meeting, really? You guys are having meetings? And so Earl and I went back and we had a forum. He was decent enough and generous enough to allow us to bring this subject into his Los Angeles Urban Policy Roundtable meetings on Saturday mornings, and where we was trying to find answers. And Skipp and Taco and Gerald Cabot walked through the door and took a seat in the back row. And you just sat back there and listened till you heard enough. And then somebody, I don't know which one of the three of you, but somebody said, y'all don't have an idea what you're talking about. You don't have
So back
anything.
then, me, Taco, and P, Gerald Cabot would go out of the utmost respect. We would allow P to talk. P would be the one who would speak for Ceasefire. P is an original East Side Crip. He is actually the one who created Cute 102. And this is a question I got for Felicia. Do you remember the radio station, Felicia, that was called Cute 102 here in L.A.? Oh, you were in the Bay Area, so you probably wouldn't remember that.
Q-U-T-E?
Yes. Yes, Cute 102.
I remember Cute.
Oh, your dad
102.
worked there. Okay. So you remember Cute 102. So, so do you know that there is actually a gang, the East Coast Crips, and they call it Cute 102s?
No.
Yes, and it's because of Pee-Pee. So,
No.
Yes, and see, a lot of people don't get that and understand that even Barefoot Pookie. Barefoot Pookie with Smoke Sherman, he liked James Brown's The Big Payback. That's why they got the Payback Crips.
Oh, Lord.
Right, so people don't know that the history of L.A. was so, I don't know.
Tied to music.
And stuff of that nature. Even the Bloodstones, on the east side, they have the Bloodstone Villains, the Bloodstone Pyrus, and, Bloodstone sang Natural High.
Oh.
That was the group at that time, People don't know the history. But anyway, when we go places, we would always allow P to speak because he knows more history than us. And something he did, too, I don't know if you remember this. On the east side, there were 3 Hispanics shot. And one of them was a 10-year-old boy. This is in 2006 or 2007. And they were shot by black African-American men, came up and shot. It was a party, and the uncles had went outside with their nephew, and 3 of them were shot and killed. And it was really horrible, and it was separating the communities. And P and a few others went over there, and they met with the family, and they offered their condolences and offered to help however they could. And, it was stuff like that that would make me sit back and say, when I'm with P, I'm not saying nothing. He can do all the talking.
Right.
So it was probably P who said that you guys don't have a clue about what y'all doing.
Well, the one thing that I really appreciated about P, he could really talk about this with such clarity. Yes. Clarity is such a small word to describe how he was able to communicate with us effectively. And one of the things that I remember that I'll probably never forget, well, he's the one that told me I needed to pace myself. Sister, I see you all excited and everything, and you want this thing done, but you have to accept that it didn't start overnight. It's not going to end overnight, and you need to pace yourself.
Right.
And then the other thing P had said was very telling. He said that, if I had been an attorney, my sons would have been attorneys too.
Right.
But this is what I became, and this is what they became, And so I've always respected P for that honesty because ceasefire is made up of former participants. We need to be clear about that. And the beauty about them is that these men from all different kind of communities, thanks to Skipp not leaving, we're trying to find solutions to our internal nightmare. And Skipp, would you like to fill in some gaps in those original days when you came in from another neighborhood and they looked at you like...
Yes, indeed, sister. Actually, it was. As a matter of fact, it's so funny. It was the poetess who brought me to Ceasefire. It was Bo Taylor said that the poetess is going to be doing public service announcements. She was at was it B100 or the Beat? It was the Beat at the time. She was doing public service announcement, and Bo said, "Let's go in there and we're just going to say some things about the community, stop the violence, whatever." Going to be there 15, 20 minutes and we out. I said, all right, come on, let's go. So when we got there, Tommy was there, Tommy Walker, Vicky Lindsay. I didn't know any of these people. Taco was there. I was like, who are these people? I didn't know them. And so I go in with my crew and we said what we said. And as we were leaving, this is my first time on the radio. So I'm like, hey, I went back and said, hey, poetess, can I get one of the DVDs, the CDs? I need to hear myself. I want to know what I sound like, right? And I think it was a deal between her and Tommy, like, okay, when I edit it, I do mastering or whatever she needed to do, she would give it to Tommy. And Tommy said, yeah, we're at the church on 79th and Western. We're there Wednesdays at 6:30. So just show up and, I'll get you the CD. So the next Wednesday I showed up and he said, oh, I don't have it. So I saw people coming in when I sat down for the meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm listening. And I'm like, oh, man, I like what they talking about. So I went, and as soon as I left, I called Bo, and I said, hey, man, I was at this meeting, and there's this lady, little short lady out of Compton. Her son died. He said, Skipp, That's Vicky Lindsay. And I said, well, there's another dude. He looked Mexican, but he not. And he got this ponytail, and he real cool. And he said, Skipp, that's Taco. I said, you know these people?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I know them. So I started staying at the meeting, and I stayed about 2 or 3 times, and they were really talking about some stuff. They were about to have a breakfast, and they looked around, and they said, okay, so all the people who are part of the church and not a part of Ceasefire, we're going to talk about some things so you guys can leave now. So I'm thinking, I ain't a part of the church. Matter of fact, I'm a heathen. I don't belong in the church, so I'm not leaving. So I looked around, and I noticed that it was everybody in that room was gang related from Crip areas. So I stated to him, I said, you know what, I'm truly grateful to be here. I like what you guys are doing here, but I just want y'all to know that I don't come from the areas that you guys are working in. There is absolutely no one working in the areas that I come from. And they said, oh, okay, all right. They said, well, now is not the time, but you could stay for the meeting tonight. But now's not the time for you to be a part of it. So I'm still coming to get the CD. I still haven't got the CD. To this day, Portis, Tommy never gave me my CD, right?
Tommy, did you hear that?
So I don't know where the CD is, but okay, I would love to have it. Yes, please.
Okay.
I truly appreciate it if you find it. But what happened, so the next time I came, they had already worked out a plan. They had strategized how they going to get rid of the one blood dude who won't lead a meeting. So what happened was
the one.
It's a room full of Crips, right? So they sent Stan Muhammad to me.
Yes. Oh
and he
God.
put his arms around me. He said, young brother, let me talk to you for a minute.
Man.
So he took me into the hallway, the hallway leading out to the parking lot. He took me in that hallway.
I'm sure he did.
Put his arms around me, squeezing me real tight, and said, brother, you have a good heart, a good spirit. He says, here's your assignment. This is what I need you to do. I need you to organize your community. I need you to get together with your people that you come from, and I want you to emulate, do the same thing that we're doing here. Want you to create that, and then at some point we bring them together and look at how the work will, will be the blessing. And I said, that's great. I said, all right, so come on, let's go back in the meeting. He said, nah, brother, that's your assignment. You go on and do that. So in other words, so I'm still not getting it. Yeah. So I leave the meeting. I call Bo Taylor again. And I say, man, do you know this tall brother? He's about 6'2", 6'3", Stan Muhammad. He said, yeah, Stan Muhammad, man. He's part of Helper. He come out of Venice. And I said, yeah, you know him? I said, yep. He said, yes, he does. So I said, well, man, he told me to organize in my own group and bring them back to the table. He said, well, Skipp, what time is the meeting over? I said, oh, the meeting's over at 8:30 or 9. He said, so why are you calling me at 7? He said, why are you not there for the meeting? And I said, because I got to go organize my community.
You was actually escorted to the door.
Right. Bo, I didn't know that till Bo told me. Bo said, Skipp, they kicked you out, man.
Yeah.
They kicked you out the meeting.
And you kind of have to know Stan. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. And if he puts his arm around you, and he's walking.
I thought he was an angel. I said, this is a brother's an angel. He's giving me my assignment so I could be part of this community organizing and intervention world. And I'm sitting here thinking this is my rites of passage, but it was my right to the exit door. That's what it was.
Yes.
And I didn't know. And when Bo told me, I told Bo, I said, man, you crazy, man. Stop hating on them, man.
Yeah.
And Bo said, Skipp, man, you don't have to go through none of that, man. We got it right here. Unity 1, man. You got a home, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to make it happen. But what it did was it made me go out and see that there was some stuff that was about to happen that was way greater than me. And there's no way in the world. I started reaching out to the communities that he told me to. I'm walking through Compton. I'm walking through, this is how I get to Cynthia. I'm walking through Compton looking for a sister. I'm looking for Sylvia. I'm looking for Sylvia Nunn. I'm finding Stutterbox. I'm in the jungle saying A.T. Rogers. So I started organizing all the different people who were older than me and helped create this in the blood community. And I looked up one day in Inglewood and I had a meeting of about 30 people. And I was sitting here thinking like, man, I'm a tow truck driver. And I got about 30 people in this room. And right during the middle of that, war broke out between two Inglewood, I don't want to say rivals because they were like brothers at the time. And they started killing each other. And that was my first piece of work that started. So I give credit to Stan Muhammad, but what happened is, they didn't know that I was going to be successful.
Right, right.
They thought that they were just going to kick me out and I was going to go away.
They thought when they escorted you to the door, it was over. It was done.
Right.
Okay, we're going back and do our thing. And it's like, but Skipp just went to the parking lot and made a U-turn.
Right. I kept coming back. And I kept bringing the Bloods with me. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, it's like, man, we can't ignore this dude. No. He is really doing what we asked him to do.
And you know what? It needed to be that way because I'm not sure if I mentioned it last week, but my involvement after I followed you out of that forum, you were having a first or second breakfast down the block at the Regency West.
Yeah, that was the second breakfast.
Second one.
Remember, they kicked me out the meeting for the first one, so I couldn't even go to the first one.
Oh, okay.
But by now, I'm back, so I can go to the second one. But I was only allowed 3 people with me, though. Mm. So it's 200 people there, and only 4 of us ever wore red.
Right.
The rest of them were the blue people.
Well, I know I followed you out the door and been following you ever since, and it's nothing I've ever regretted. Because as I said last week, I was really with the mothers. That's really where I started. And their grief became my grief. Their frustration, my frustration. Their anger, my anger. Their determination to end the violence became my determination. So I became one of them. And along the way, met Skipp, found out about ceasefire, went running to join that effort, and had the beauty and benefit of the beginning days when we were in that little room upstairs that I joke how smoky it was in there. It was a haze in that room, and nobody was smoking any cigarettes, no tobacco use, but that's the kind of heat that was being generated. And it was mediation. Heads of families mediating in that room and just talking it out and trying to come some kind of decisions about our future in this.
Yes, it was a lot of heated discussions in that room. And once again, I'm going to give credit to Gerald Cabot, PP, because he brought the right ones in the room.
He did.
He would bring, and one thing he had told me one time, I told him, I said, man, I recognize one of the dudes that you have. And I said, man, he's a shooter. He's an active shooter right now. He's not a person to come and talk. He's still out there shooting. And he said, well, sometimes, Skipp, you just got to wait till they finish shooting. And then you could talk to them. And I was like, man, that is so crazy. He said, yeah. He said, just wait. He said, when they finish shooting, then you could say, okay, are you ready now? You ready to talk? He's saying sometimes they're ready. And I said, man, that is so crazy. But, that is how the work is done. Yeah. I cannot say that I have no more crime in my community if I don't interact with the criminals.
Right.
Right. I just can't say that. We talked about this offline, too, about being a gang expert. I don't believe that there are gang experts who could never say that they gang bang or were gang involved. So it's, P showed me a whole lot. I'm going to tip my hat. Let me take my hat off to Gerald Cabot.
Yes.
Because in this work, yes, I mocked him. And one of the things that I've made famous all throughout the prison system, I teach in the prisons, is I tell people in there, don't nobody want to get dead. Right. And they say, Skipp, you said that wrong. And I said, no, I said it right. I'm quoting P, Gerald Cabot. That's how he says it. Don't nobody want to get dead.
Yeah,
don't nobody want to get dead. Right. No. So don't you leave this prison, go out there and get dead. So they know sometimes when they're graduating different classes, they always say, they look forward to going home. And, the one thing that sticks in their mind is they don't want to get dead when they get home. But I got that from PP.
Yeah. Well, he was very powerful, very.
Let's
powerful.
say he is because he's still alive. Yeah. I don't want to talk like the man that passed on.
Yeah, because he's not with the ceasefire meetings anymore, and I miss him for that. But he's out in the street. He's been traveling the country, bringing this message coast to coast any chance he gets. That's what he's been doing. So it's not like he walked away, because he didn't walk away. He just went back in the streets where he had to do the work.
Right.
So. When I think of, because I was really kind of excited at the last show to say how the homicides have reduced.
Yes.
But the point I didn't pin down how much it has reduced from when we started.
Yes.
Yes. that 114 last year was a substantial reduction in murder since the formation of ceasefire and the Watch Gang Task Force. It used to be, well, I don't want to go back that long, but God, it was so many hundreds.
Sister, so let me see if you remember this. Because we've been in a lot of corners, a lot of people have gotten killed. Yeah. There was a young girl playing outside. Shooting happened and she ran up the stairs on 76th Street in San Pedro. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Oh, yes.
And come to find out later, it was her cousin who had killed her.
Yes.
Okay.
13-year-old cousin.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So at the time of her death, my twins were the same age. Mm. They were the same age at that time. So, yeah, I guess it was about 10 years ago because they were about 8 years old. So as we're marching around, it just came over me. Just a feeling came over me of this is uncontrollable. I was emotional. Mm-hmm. I was telling Sergeant Scott at the time, Lloyd Scott, LAPD, I was telling him as we walked around this block, I was saying, man, I don't feel that we're doing enough. I don't feel like enough is being done, community, law enforcement, whatever. I'm like, man, this should never happen. I was almost in tears. Mm-hmm. And he said, wait, hold on, Skipp. He said this month right here, the month of July, he said that there are 45 homicides in the month of July of whatever the year was. I think it was 2006 or 2007. It had to be 2007. He said there are about 40-something homicides
in that 1 month.
In that 1 month.
Yes.
He said, let me tell you, he says, last year it was 75 in that month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, this is horrible.
Yeah.
He says, so we're doing great work, man. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, it was 45 homicides in 1 month.
In 1 month. You know, that's what caught my attention. That's actually how I found Charlotte Austin Jordan. The police chief of South Bureau at the time had come out in January and said virtually the same thing. It's just the third week or whatever week that was, and we've had 45 homicides already.
Right.
And that's when I started. Well, at that time, they came out with a homicide report. Then the police started keeping the statistics. And so I would go to the website virtually every month to check South Bureau and see how many had been killed in this violence. And back in those days, it was like 2, 3 a week. Count on it. You know, it's what are we doing?
Right.
How can we possibly afford to lose 2 of our young people every week? It just wasn't making any sense to me. And you know, that's kind of when I found Charlotte. It's like, what can I do to help you? Right. You know, and she was leading crying mothers all around the city, trying to get the attention of our community. And, you know, media didn't really care. And the worst part was that our community didn't really care in those days either.
Right.
You know, so it's been quite a path that you and I have been on, and the only regret is that I have is that I've been chasing our murdered children, you know. And as a black woman at the age that I am, knowing our history.
You didn't say your age, though. You didn't say.
Well, I'm old enough, but
that's right. Go ahead.
Look, I was conscious when Dr. King and Malcolm was killed.
Right.
Okay, so I'm of another generation, raised in a different time with different values, and I was able, because of that, to see the change that had overcome my people. And it's like my whole question was, how could we do that to ourselves?
Right.
After everything that we've been through, now we got the gun in our hands. We chasing our own people down the street, doing everything we can to end their life. And it's like, something's wrong.
I got the opportunity during Christmas to sit down with Charles Nesbitt. So you know Kawisi that comes here. Mm-hmm. He says, Skipp, my dad is in town.
Oh.
So I said, man, where is he? I don't care how. He was somewhere up in Canyon Country.
Okay.
And I said, I don't care. So Christmas Eve, about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I find myself in Canyon Country.
Okay.
In this big old giant house. I guess it's his sister's house or whatever. And we're up there, and he was telling me, he just began talking. Mm-hmm. He didn't even stop. Said that he was at a Klan rally. They were doing something, and he found himself on the wrong side of the gate.
Yeah.
He said, Skip, they was beating me unconscious. He said John Lewis, and he named somebody else who's famous senator or something. Might have been Andrew Young or something. Said that they helped him get over the gate, and he said he was almost unconscious. The police grabbed him, beat him up some more, put him in the paddy wagon, took him to the hospital. And he said the cold thing was took him to the wrong hospital because, there's certain hospitals they can go to, certain ones they couldn't.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he was unconscious and he heard the nurse saying, oh, them niggas over there fighting on whatever street it was. And they going to have to leave this hospital.
Can't bring him here.
Can't bring him here,
Can't
whatever.
bring him here.
So when they talk about stuff like that, there was a clear enemy at the time. It was a clear enemy.
Oh, yes.
And we knew that we were on the same team, the same side. But that is long gone now. And we look at each other and we look at each other as our enemies.
Yes.
Instead of looking at people who oppressed us, people who defiled us, people who would beat us as being our enemies, we turn around and when there's nobody to trip on, we trip on each other.
Yes. Well, that was a very specific act that damaged our village, our community spirit. And I always go back to 3 incidents: the killing of Dr. Malcolm, then Dr. King, then the elimination of the Black Panthers.
Yes.
And that's when we were at our most vulnerable. And by design, those drugs showed up and just fell on our poverty, just showered our poverty. And nobody recognized that the addiction is what was driving the money.
So think about what you just said, because something else he shared with me was this. He said they would beat the people that they would capture so bad that it would put fear in the other one to where they wouldn't want to be a part of the movement anymore.
Right.
He said that they would scare the average person into saying, oh, I don't want no problems. I don't want no parts of that.
Right.
So think about that. And now you have the community divided. Like, we're going to stay away from them. They militant, they this and that.
Right.
The police going to get
dangerous.
them. We don't. They dangerous.
Yeah.
So now we start that divide. Then when you put drugs in a community, you put the issues, the poverty, the system that creates that, right? And now he said what they'll do is, he says, Skip, they'll take these individuals who want to be militant, who want to say they want to clean the community. He said the government will give them money. He says, think about this. So if the government gives you money to work and clean up your own community, but they don't change the conditions or the system that creates the need for change, well, now you're just sitting here spinning your wheels and they paying for it. Now the government gets to say, well, we helped you. We supported you in cleaning up your neighborhood, and you guys just can't do it. And you'll be divided because some groups will get funding, some groups won't. And remember, some groups will say, oh, we're not fooling with them, period. So now the community is fighting amongst each other while the system stays the same.
The system stays the same. And, we had a really good conversation the week before Christmas, and that was about what became legal Monday in California finally. And I've been kind of joking about it all weekend. And because, honestly, family, I'm a child of the 60s. I know smokers. Okay? I've known smokers most of my adult life, and I found them to be educated, working, intelligent, and motivated.
Let me translate real quick.
Okay.
When she said smokers, she was not talking about your crack addicts
out
there smoking and stealing from your families and breaking into people's houses. Right. She was talking about marijuana.
I'm talking about potheads. That's what I'm talking about. I've known potheads my whole adult life. And, I was married to one. Okay. And bless his heart, Dale had a love for agriculture. And he had a love for that plant. And when it became
cannabis sativa.
Yeah. When it became a medical allowance, he ran and got himself legal.
Right.
Just so he could grow. And so that's one of the things that he loved to do. He liked to fool around with that plant, see what it was going to come up with, and you know, you guys just have things about yourself that you just want to do. And the wife or the girlfriend just has to say, okay, honey.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just to keep peace in the thing. It's like, okay, as long as you ain't robbing no banks and killing nobody.
Right.
All right. And Dale was a good man. He was a good man, good father, good provider, good worker, came from a humble beginning, born and raised in a racist South that showed him a lot of things that made him want to smoke. Really, I'm smoking to get away from the ugly that I see around me. And bless his heart, he worked for 30 years because of affirmative action. Yes, and I thank you for reminding me that, Skipp, because had it not been for affirmative action, my husband would have never gotten that job. So now because of affirmative action, he's gotten a job where people feel like, well, you taking a job from a white guy. See, so he had that pushback at work too. Right. You know, so he had to stay balanced. As a black man living in this country, just trying to take care of his family and stuff, he had to stay balanced. And the racist South, he used to tell me some of the things they used to do when they were young, you know, just the little pushback that they used to give. And I just bust out laughing because that's the way they got even. You know, you couldn't go in the front door of the restaurants where you worked. You could only come through the kitchen entrance. You weren't allowed in the front room. They had restaurants in New Orleans that you couldn't come through the front door at all. They had a side window to serve colored people. You could buy the same food, but you had to buy it through that window on the side of the building. You could never go inside. And so I had heard about it, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles. Right. So I didn't really realize until the first time I went to New Orleans exactly what he was talking about. And I ran right into that racism. And it's like, no.
Do you remember that movie Life with Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence?
Mm-hmm.
Martin Lawrence goes into the restaurant and say he wants a slice of that pie.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, that's a white-only pie.
Yeah, that's a white-only pie.
Right, it's a white-only pie. And so Eddie Murphy has all this money in his pocket, and he said, what would it take to make that a nigger pie? And then people said, if I get my shotgun, I'm going to make you a
nigger. Right. I'll make you a dead nigger.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it was definitely real. And I don't want to say it was as if it stopped.
Yeah,
it is definitely real. And the system promotes separation and division in our community. And even though there's a lot of money put into prevention, intervention, and other substance abuse, reentry, and homeless programs right now, there is still a system that creates homelessness.
Yes.
When you have no rent control in the city of Inglewood, and they've raised their rent times 3 since the Rams and Chargers come.
Yes.
And, to live, let me tell you, the jungles, this is where growing up, Bloods from everywhere would always go live in the jungles. It's like a safe haven for blood gangs and members, that want to go to work every day or whatever. And, now it is ridiculous, So I may get shot at the bus stop, but they still want $1,200 a month for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So, I'd rather go somewhere else than where maybe I won't get shot,
Well,
but it's just the system is still in place that won't allow us to be healthy in this community.
When I was talking about my first exposure to that kind of overt racism, I wanted to chime in. Well, see, when you said that it's not over, they marched. They showed up from across the country to march through Charlottesville last year to let the world know we're still here.
Yeah.
And we're so strong and confident that we're not going to wear the hoods that the Klan used to wear. We're going to show your face, and we're going to carry torches. Even if they're tiki torches we bought from Walmart, we got fire with us. So my friend, I thank her for that joke that they were tiki torches. I mean, because I didn't see anything funny about it until she said, yeah, but did you notice they were carrying Walmart tiki torches? And it's like, man, because before she mentioned that, I was ready to go after them.
Yeah, but it's still symbolism. So what does the torch symbolize?
Right.
And the symbolism, And for them, it's symbolism with substance. They have substance to it. Like there's a clear message in why they're doing what they do. So,
well, they carried torches back in those days where they wore hoods to burn crosses on your lawn, hang the males in the home, and burn the house down. So they
is it
carried
the same message?
torches to use.
It's the same message.
I would imagine so,
Right.
since one of their members thought it was a good idea to drive his car full force through that crowd and with the intent to hurt people,
Right.
and killed a woman.
Right. Heather,
know.
I can't remember Heather's last name. I'll
Yeah.
look it up, but yeah, rest in peace, Heather. Heather.
Yes, yeah. And the young 8-year-old that you were talking about, that was Jasmine Sanders. And bless her heart, she was killed by her 13-year-old cousin,
Right.
who had actually come to get vengeance on a teenage man that was in the courtyard that night. And he was coming to get vengeance, and because that man had done something to his family, had done something to his sister. And the sad reality in those days is that his escort in that alley where he shot his cousin was 14.
Wow.
He was 13 and his little escort was 14. So these were babies killing our babies. And it's like, I was stupefied at that. It's like, yes, it was an accident, but you're 13 years old coming over here to kill somebody that's 18, 19 years old. We're missing something. We're missing something.
We're missing the father figure. We're missing the head of the household. We're missing the man who would have stopped whatever went wrong in that house and would have stopped it from going wrong and would have told the 13 and 14-year-old, let it go. I'm going to deal with it.
Right.
I have it.
Right.
And made apologies and made people work together as a family.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing. We're missing the strong men. And we were talking about ceasefire and what's going on with Tim and Taco coming out, and I think that's what we're going back to with groups like Ceasefire, Second Call, Watts Gang Task Force, Detours, Pathway to Your Future, all the different groups that are the Helper Foundation, all the different groups. Well, it brings a man perspective, and it brings it back, and not saying taking anything from the women. A lot of women do this work, but I think what is really needed is true leadership and having someone for the boys to look at that are men.
Yeah.
And, so I didn't want to feel like a groupie. I'm talking about I went out here to Canyon Country to sit and listen and talk to Charles Nesbitt. And I just felt so powerful. And I was thinking, man, had I gotten this information, had I had this type of environment around me, I definitely wouldn't have been a South LA gang member. I wouldn't have went to jail and prison. I would have been doing something more powerful at 18, 19 years old.
No, Skip, you know what? And I like to think that's possible. But in that, I don't see it happening, really. See, because it was a dirty trick perpetrated on us, as I said, dropped in the middle of our poverty. And it was really grown because of the addiction.
Right.
Okay, and the addiction is what pushed that money, pushed the money in. When my friend said, well, I had so much money coming in, I had to put it somewhere. And, one person we know bought his mama house and then bought 4 other homes. So he actually owned 4 homes. A friend that I've talked to actually had 40 cars, and I promised to whip him when we got outside the studio for telling me that, because my joke was you can't drive but 1 car at a time.
Right.
What do you need 39 others, So it's been a horror, but things happened that forced that we became enemies to each other, that we had pharmacies set up on every corner with a payphone, and you had a pager, and that's where you did business, what I used to call them street corner pharmacies.
Right.
There's a payphone, they're doing work. And in those days, they had a pager, and in where we were at the time working, we had to fight with our neighbor to get that payphone taken off the corner.
Right.
Because they were getting a percentage from the phone company for every call that was made. But the neighborhood was using that to do drug deals.
Right.
So.
One of the things they did is I don't know if it was the FCC or just the local government had a lot of them make the phones to where they weren't called back.
Right.
So where you can't receive phone calls.
Yeah.
So then what became a value.
The first thing they did was took the payphone number off.
Right.
Then they changed it where you couldn't call back.
Right. So what eventually happened is phones that could receive a call back, they became a commodity in the city, you know, phones that would. So my place was in Inglewood at the Big Donut on La Cienega. You know, La Cienega and Manchester, that's got call back. So I would go sit there and wait. And
see, because that's how I knew that it was the black market pharmacy, because there was always somebody sitting around or near that payphone, and we just knew that's a business look.
Right.
You're there working. You ain't there waiting for. Where you waiting? But
yep.
Yeah, so.
It's really crazy, sister, but I'm just glad that I made it out of that foolishness, out of that nightmare, out of all that. I'm glad that so many others have as well, and looking forward to being a value, a way to help for 2018, you know, make sure that we don't ever revisit that life again.
I don't see us going backwards. We still have a few stragglers, I'm gonna keep saying this until the apathetic hear me. You're the reason it continues, because your silence is consent. And the black folks that say, "Oh, it's them," you don't understand that you're condoning the them that you're dismissing. It's like, yeah, let them do whatever they do as long as they don't come over my block, they don't come over my neighborhood. Well, how are we going to raise our children to respect each other and respect others if you don't care about them killing each other? You see, it goes along with bullying. Would you let somebody bully your child? No. You'd be at the school trying to get that fixed. You talk to the parents of the bully trying to work that out. But somehow, when it comes to this, it's like, no, not me. As if it's some kind of contagious thing like the flu.
Right.
If I get in there, I'm going to catch the flu. You're going to save a child. That's what you're going to do if you get in there, and maybe save your own child.
Right.
How about that?
That's part of the ceasefire motto is the life you save may be your own. And what's really amazing to me is I actually went to Tim's church this past Sunday.
Did you?
Yes, and the pastor was saying how could he help. And I was saying, well, when we pass out water, when we're on the corners, the people who won't take the water from us are the church people.
Are the church people.
Are the people who claim to be good Christian people with good Christian values and good Christian morals. But these are the same people who refuse to take the free water while we're out here diluting the community. We're diluting the system of the people in the community because someone might be high or drunk.
Yeah.
So
we've run across them high and drunk.
And we have.
Yes.
And the good church people, the ladies with the big hats and the men with their nice suits on, $400 or $500 suits, they refuse to take on water. And that then becomes...
It wasn't just the water. They refused to see us.
Right.
They refused
turn
to
their head,
roll
roll the windows up, shake like, no, do like that.
Yes.
And you got all your jewelry on and your church hat, and now get away. And
waving us off.
What? I ain't gonna go. I was gonna say, what make them good Christians? But anyway,
well, I was gonna say, what if Jesus had done that to them? Oh no! Wave off. No, I don't see you.
Right.
You see, you sit in the church, call yourself a Christian, say that you're saved, but then you go out and don't do what Jesus would do.
Right.
I mean, what if Jesus? That's always my pushback. Is that acceptable?
First of all, I don't think Jesus would have had a Cadillac. I think Jesus would have need tags on his car. If Jesus
he came
was out
on
here
a
right now,
donkey, okay?
Right. So if he was around right now, he'd have a beat up Honda or something.
He'd
have
be
like
working
2,
in
3
the street.
different colors on it. The interior be all messed up, and he'd have about as many people could fit in there. He would not have a license. Jesus probably wouldn't have no driver's license, and he wouldn't have no tags on his car. You know, be smoking. And I think his car would have like 3 different tires on it, and you know that's what I see. And he would see something like that, and he would get out. I believe he would get out the car and say, "What are you guys doing?" and help.
Yes. I expected that would be the way he would act. He'd come and ask, You're dying for what? You're killing each other for what? And my ultimate answer for a shooter, what's the goal? What's the victory? Are you at war? What's it going to take for you to win this war? Is it going to take for every black man around you to be dead? Are you supposed to be the only one left standing, you and your crew? I mean, those are common sense questions that I have that I really want to ask that shooter. What is your goal?
Right.
Yeah.
Hurt people,
Yeah.
sister. And people who are hurt often look to hurt others for no other reason than that they're being hurt themselves.
Well, you made me think about the little 14-year-old girl that was killed at the fireworks display. She's out watching the 4th of July. They got fireworks. This 19-year-old comes up in the crowd to kill somebody he perceives as the enemy and kills a 14-year-old girl instead. But then he goes home, and what, you expected that would be okay? That you could go kill this child that had nothing to do with your beef, but then you have the right to go home, eat, take a bath, put on clean clothes, and do what? You see, so these are the real questions that we're asking our own community. And if Skipp wasn't out here, if there wasn't a ceasefire and a Watts Gang Task Force, there wouldn't be a Gang Talk Radio where we could ask you that generic question. So we're trying to plant seeds. And the other thing that I wanted to add in tonight, Skipp, is that I'm seeing a different attitude from our young people, and I'm going to say 24 and under. There's some 27 to 35-year-olds that are still foolish. They just clowning in the street. But I've started asking them. I check them first to see where their spirit is. Do they have a spirit? Are they accessible? Okay? And for years, I've been doing that. For years. It's like, ooh, can't talk to that one, but ooh, I can talk to this one. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And just this week, I ran into a young man in the common area, and he was just so kind of happy. He was at peace. He was calm. He wasn't worried about nothing. And that was right across the street from the church where we started Ceasefire. Okay. To see that corner, because, you know, the church is doing the homeless shelter for the winter, which they've been doing for the last few years. So they have an extra community members that are in this homeless arena, and they've kind of surrounded this place. But this young man that I ran into, and I asked him because he was smiling. And what black men just don't understand, when you smile, you light up the room. You really don't understand that. But when you smile, you light up the room.
Who told a black man to not smile?
I don't know. Your mama. I wouldn't know that if you didn't tell on her, but, you know.
Oh, man, it was Yvonne Townsend told me not to smile.
Okay.
She told me start smiling. I'm smiling in every picture. I come home, I don't know if it's the 2nd or 3rd grade. I got the pictures. And she, you know, and you know what it was is that my tooth were crooked, and you know I had one missing. You know, little kids have buck teeth, and sometimes a tooth missing. She said, "Boy, you don't have to smile every time they want to take your picture. You know, stop smiling. Keep your mouth closed sometimes. You know." So I was like, all right. So it started the habit of not smiling. But I think what happens is...
Is that why you always look like you're taking a mugshot when we take pictures in here?
Listen, I'm going to show you a picture of my mother. I'm going to tell you, my twin daughters went to prom together. And my mother was in the middle of them taking a picture. And my mother balled up her fist and did like this and took the picture. Right in front of them. And somebody came and said, man, who your mama mad at?
Who's she mad at?
And I said, she's not mad. That's just how she is. But I'm going to show you the picture when we off air. Because that is just how she is. You know, what happens back in the days, her mother had to fight. Her mother is, you know, light-skinned, half Indian, half black, whatever. And, you know, so she had to fight for just sanity. You know, I mean, they wanted to abuse her in any kind of way possible.
Bullying.
So she... of course, taught my mother, you better fight or they're going to take advantage of you. So my mother learned to fight, and then raising 3 boys without the man in the house, she taught us we need to fight.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not mad at her. I mean, but I know now that I have to teach Carter and Cody and my other children something different.
Something different.
It has to be a healthier lifestyle that they choose.
Yeah.
Sister.
And you know what? Because I had to do the same thing for our sons. Their dad was at work, and they were confronted by things right in front of where we lived. It's like, well, we got to handle this right now. We can't wait for Dad to get home after dark, and then we're going to fix this. No, resolve had to come right now. And so, unfortunately, I had to send my baby boy out there to face that threat. He was 8. And I think these boys, they were giving him a hard time with 12. They were older. And Dale was just 8. And they're trying to take his bike. And it's like, well, you going to let him have it? Well, no, they can't. Mom, they can't just take my bike. It's like, well, here, take this baseball bat and go out there and tell them they can't take your bike. So I sent my 8-year-old out there with a baseball bat to defend himself. And the two 12-year-olds telling me, lady, that ain't fair. I said, well, it's as fair as two of you 12-year-olds picking on this one 8-year-old. I think I gave him an equalizer. So the fight's a little more fair. You still want the bike?
Right.
You see, so we were forced to do things like that just to teach our kids. It was a different time.
Right.
It was a different time, you know. So
you have to say what stood out to you. And you have to say what stood out to you and what you want to leave the audience with.
What stood out to me?
Because you're going to leave a crowd of people hanging on your last words.
Well, okay, because this is our first show of 2016, and technically this is
2016.
Think about what she just said.
Think about what she just said. 2016. You're going to take us back. You're going to make America great again, huh, sister?
Oh, no. That was the year we started, actually, with Morris Media, and I had a flashback to January of 2016. And do you remember who our guest was? Talib Picante's daddy.
Oh, yes, indeed. Okay.
And Talib was 7 years old. God, I'm getting my numbers all mixed up. But he was 7 years old, and that was a shock to all of us, just as
it was.
Jasmine Sanders was. And believe us, we have had some shocks. So I'm just happy to start a next year without the kind of devastation that we started with, Skipp.
Right.
So one murder is still one too many, but to bring it down from the 800, the thousands that were happening in the year that we started paying attention, you know, that's great progress. And the other thing, too, I see Chicago's waking up.
Right. I saw that as well.
Yes.
Well, sister, I want to give a message to Chicago.
Yeah.
I want to give a message to Seattle, L.A., Inglewood, Compton, and Watts. Keep your head to the sky.
That's right. God bless your community, family. We love you. Happy New Year. And the Gang Talk will be back next week.
God willing, of course.
God willing, of course. Absolutely.
And the creek don't rise.
If the creek rises, we don't care. We don't wade in the water.